What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, we got a very special show for you. Some hits and headlines with Broderick Jones and JP, George Pickens, making some, we'll say false headlines for lack of a better term right now. A beautiful sunny day rounding out a Father's Day weekend. I hope all the fathers, all the pops out there had a wonderful Father's Day. Thank you to a special shout out to our boy Derek Bell, who is the grandfather,
absolutely.
the father of all Steelers talk. Gotta love him. Hope he enjoyed his Sunday as well. It's a beautiful day in the Berg. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. This weekend I was hanging out with Noah Hiles, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He invited me over to his house. He for his birthday, his dad got him this like whiskey tasting. So we were like sitting on his back porch enjoying some whiskey. You know, he had some cigars. Felt very Italian. I was at this shirt, the top two buttons unbuttoned. I just needed a chain to complete the look. It was a nice time. But yeah, avoided all the Taylor Swift madness, but it was a good weekend.
Yeah, I almost forgot that Taylor Swift was here this weekend. That does sound like a phenomenal. You should have texted me. I got plenty of chains for you. Plenty of chains. I got a couple of pinky rings if you need a pinky ring. I got anything. I got a pinky ring with Lonza inside the pinky ring. So you need you need some Italian jewelry. You just let me know. I got plenty. I'm always here to help. I did forget Taylor Swift came. There were Swifties everywhere. Like I've never seen anything. I tried to compare it. My dad actually gave me a good comparison yesterday because he was telling me, he's like, yeah, it's like when I used to go follow the Grateful Dead and all this. And I'm like, yeah, honestly, like that's as close as it gets right now. I live 20 minutes outside the city and my neighborhood was slamming with Swifties. Like it was insane. I'm sure Southside was.
Yeah, it was mobbed. But also, like, you couldn't, like, you walk past, like, every bar with, like, their doors open, and every one of them was playing Taylor Swift at the same time. Like, they took over the touch tunes or whatever was in there. Like, it was, and then also, you can't open Instagram without, like, seeing someone post something on their story from the Acrisure last night. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was wild. She set a new record that I don't even know was held by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the most she now owns the attendance record at Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh's going to have to get that one back this year. Don't know.
For a while, Pitt had it.
Was it Pitt? Was it the West Virginia game?
No, I don't think it was this West Virginia game. When they played Penn State, I think either my freshman year of college or in like 2016, I think when they first brought that game back, I think those both set attendance records.
Wow,
I'm 90% sure. Yeah.
Wow, Steelers got to step that one up. They should most certainly own the record at their home stadium.
I know. I always thought it was weird.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. The NFL you watch from. I would watch an NFL game from home. It gets cold. Also, you got like 4 games before you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good sitting outside. All right, let's dive into some news and notes here. Broderick Jones is where we'll start. Named a quote unquote loser during minicamp from the Athletics. Mark Kaboly wasn't really he didn't perform well. It was more of didn't make a bunch of headlines. To pull it right from the article itself, quote, I hate to label the first round pick as a loser based on what he showed the past month because offensive line play cannot be judged until the helmets and pads go on. The Steelers always allow competition to play out. Rarely do they name someone a starter just because of their tenure, their paycheck, or draft status. It appears that more is going to make Jones fight for his spot on the roster, and that is why Kaboly believes he's a loser, because he didn't come in here, and I think the fans had an expectation that he was immediately going to be that franchise left tackle. He definitely has to earn it. And I think that's the mindset that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to hold. They're not going to change it anytime soon. Do you view it the same way? Do you view Broderick Jones as a minicamp quote-unquote loser, or do you have different thoughts?
Well, I think this is more about, honestly, Dan Moore being a winner than Broderick Jones being a loser. And I think that's something that Kaboly said in his article. But yeah, this is, I think, less about Broderick and less about anything he did during minicamp and just more about the situation around him. And it seems like everyone is generally comfortable with that, with the situation that he's in and with the guys that are in front of him and the opportunities that he has to learn and to kind of take this more slowly than kind of throw him to the fire and really make him I don't know, and kind of put a lot on his shoulders and put like protecting your franchise quarterback on a rookie's shoulders who is
Yep.
also again like a raw product. He's got a long to go. Like this, I still think that by the end of the season, Broderick Jones is going to end up starting, if not at least playing some significant snaps. But yeah, I think everyone can be comfortable with the idea that Dan Moore is capable, and especially like you talk about those first few games of the year when
Yep.
you're handling guys like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa. Is Joey which Bosa's on?
Nick Bosa's
Nick,
on the
Nick
49ers.
Bosa,
Yeah, I
sorry,
always get those confused.
yeah, but you can feel very comfortable going into those games and saying Dan Moore is more than capable of handling those guys and handling those first few starts, and you kind of go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dan Moore right now is a winner. Like I was going to name the winners and losers, but I kind of saw everybody else do it, and I get kind of. I'm not a follower, never have been. I always try to find my own little route there. So I saw everybody's winners and losers when I was putting my list together during that final week of minicamp. Dan Moore was on my winners. And I think that's just because of two things. One, the Steelers have shown trust in this guy. They haven't, if they wanted to, they would have removed him immediately. That's exactly what they did at cornerback. You know, Joey Porter Jr. is already playing as a starter right now. They've done that with multiple roles in multiple different positions this offseason and in off seasons past. This year, they said Dan Moore is for right now our starting left tackle. On top of that, he's kind of shown his progress and said, "Hey, look I'm ready to be a leader. This is my fourth year or my third year in the NFL. I'm surely ready to step into more of a veteran status." And he started working as the right tackle as well, just to make sure that he's ready to go. I think that Dan Moore really kind of caught the hearts of the Pittsburgh Steelers during minicamp and during OTAs. And I think that goes a long way. I think that's what Kaboli was kind of trying to emulate there and not necessarily just take a jab at Broderick Jones. Do I think Broderick Jones, is going to ever end up a winner this summer? I honestly I don't know. Like I think that right now it's a waiting game. He's got to really flash something during training camp to earn that starting job. I think it is a rocky road to climb for him just because Dan Moore has solidified himself so well into that role this offseason and has gained the trust and has been a position that the Steelers or in a position that the Steelers have said, hey, we've replaced Kevin Dotson. We're set to replace you. We already know that. But at the same time, we're going to kind of let him earn it and you kind of stay in that role for the time being. I think that labels him a winner. I think Broderick Jones has a lot to prove still. But, do I think it's a big deal that he was named a loser? No, I think people were, especially like some publications were putting out there like, are you kidding me? This is really a loser. I'm like, yeah, well, what did you make a headline? Every other rookie made a headline at minicamp. Every
Right.
other one. Like, not him, not Broderick Jones. The other news that I want to talk about, George Pickens, who, this one gets me a little fired up, maybe.
Mm.
Um, there's a quote that is surfaced on the internet here from NFL Rookie Watch, who has 91,000 followers on Twitter. 91,000 followers have seen this tweet and have somewhat like put it into themselves as this is the truth. The quote that they're using is George Pickens' rookie year is reportedly viewed as a quote unquote failure by Steelers wide receivers coach Frisman Jackson. Jackson said it was a failure on his part as well as Pickens' part. Pickens led the team in receiving touchdowns last year with 4 and second in receiving yards with 801. Jackson said he expects a quote unquote big jump from Pickens in year 2, and the expectations for him is to play at a great level. Let me dive into this for a second here. So just to start, the quote or the quote that they're taking it from is this. Let me tell you, because it was said to me from Frisman Jackson during coaching interviews, during minicamp. I asked, what are the expectations for George Pickens in year 2? He said, quote, it has to be a big jump. The onus is on me to have him take that next step, that big jump that we are all searching for and want. He's got to be a great player for us. We need him to be a great player, and for him to play like he did last year, that's a failure on my part. That's a failure on his part. And so he's got to play at a great level, and the expectations is for him to play at a great level this year. Now, before you just take that one quote and say, oh, well, there it is, you have to follow the context. And the context was a very long conversation between Frisman Jackson, myself, and Mike Prosciutto of WVDVE, who were talking about the Steelers, wanting to add slant routes and more underneath stuff to George Pickens' game so that he's not just a deep threat. Frisman Jackson literally said that if it is one-on-one coverage down the sideline, George Pickens is open and he expects a catch 100% of the time. He said at worst 99.9% of the time he should win that battle. This year, he wants him to be able to, quote, he's got to be able to take a slant and go 60 with it. That's what we were talking about, just the evolution of his game. They took the word failure, ran with it, didn't let it go, and now a billion people, 91,000 to be exact, have seen it and have said, oh, well, George Pickens is being viewed as a failure. Well, you got thoughts? I got plenty of thoughts, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, yeah, this was just, I mean, I understand how you could misread that, but
Yeah.
this was about, I don't know, it seemed to me like it was more about, look, if George Pickens plays the way he did last season, then that's a failure.
Yeah.
Then if he's not taking steps forward, that is a failure, which is a completely reasonable thing to say because of the quote you read explains, they expect a lot from George Pickens and he expects a lot from himself, and he was a little one-dimensional at times last year, and to add things to his game is a natural progression for every rookie receiver. But I don't know, it seemed a little lazy, seemed a little like you're trying to stir up controversy where it's not there. And there's a story to talk about there. There's George Pickens adding things to his game. Like it's not like there's nothing to talk about and we're just fishing for a story here, but they fished for the wrong story, and now a bunch of people have the wrong impression, I think, of what George Pickens is, what's expected of George Pickens and what the Steelers think of him.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that it led to probably a large number of people being upset at Frisman Jackson and maybe having a bad taste in their mouth for him now. And you're right. There was a story there. The story was the Steelers are trying to turn George Pickens into an even bigger superstar. Like their idea for him this year is to be George Pickens 2.0, which is supposed to be a Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase type athlete. That's what they want him to be able to do. Instead, it's like, oh, he was looked at as a failure. It was a bad rookie season. No, it wasn't. Like Frisman Jackson loves George Pickens, and he had nothing but great things to say about him in like a 5 to 6 minute conversation. Like it wasn't like it was just like 30 seconds of this is nonsense, George. Like he was giving great quotes. He was real into the conversation. He was ready to go and talk up George Pickens while also being honest about what they're trying to do with him in year 2. You don't run with these things. I think that's the thing is like, it's this time of the year. It's the quietest part of the offseason. We have 6 weeks before the Steelers return to practice. In those 6 weeks, so much nonsense will hit the scene. So much. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you get sucked into the nonsense. Sometimes you fall for the nonsense. Sometimes you need the nonsense to talk about because there's nothing else to talk about. But we're like 3 days into the nonsense, and there's
Right.
just there's no need to grab this one and run with it. And I think that, just like you said, like there was a story there. And if you did your job correctly, you would see that the real story is a positive one and not one that you're just looking to make headlines with. And I had a dozen plus people in my DMs hitting me up saying, is this real? Is George Pickens are the Steelers really upset with George Pickens' season? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what this means. Like, this is ridiculous. It is it's a false narrative. It's pretty much blatantly like a lie. It's fabrication. And I think you just, it's a fair warning that we have to start here. It's just like the Deontay stuff. Back when we were talking to Calvin Austin about the Deontay
Yeah.
Johnson nonsense, you always get slow parts, and during those slow parts, people are going to go nuts.
Right.
And you just gotta, you gotta take it. You got to do your own investigating on some things and not take it so serious and so straightforward, because Twitter accounts lie, man.
Well,
That's
also,
all they
yeah,
do.
this is like a big like national, like they cover the entire, they're talking about the entire NFL. Like they don't know the context of of these conversations day in and day out. They're not the ones talking to these coaches like you are. Like these are, I don't know. You miss a lot of context when you're just typing out tweets and just posting pictures and trying to look for conflict. But sometimes there's there's value in people who are on the ground and who are actually doing this stuff and actually seeing it every day and can tell you a little bit more about the relationship that these coaches and these players have with each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, you want good reporting, don't go to the national media. And I got nothing against the national media. I actually enjoy the national media quite a bit for what they do. But, and especially Twitter, don't ever believe a Twitter account ever.
Right.
If this person does not
Right.
write for something, they do not put out journalistic work. They're not a journalist. They're just a Twitter account. And
Right. It's a faceless, nameless Twitter account. It's just NFL Rookie Watch, and like you can't really trace that back to anyone or anything. Like there's no accountability for them if they do get something wrong. They can just they'll just have people in their quote tweets. That's it.
That's all they can ignore every single part. That's the thing, you get me, you, Kaboli, anybody that we talk about on this show that has boots on the ground at camp. If I write something that isn't real, chances are not only are the Steelers going to come up to me during practice and bitch me out, but that player, like I run the risk of that play. And I've seen it. Like I've seen James Harrison get like crazy mad at people. I've seen Marquise Pouncey get mad. I've seen players be like, yo, where is this guy? I got to go find him. Zach Banner, the 1 year during training camp, was walking by me and Nick Fairbaugh, yells up to the stands and looks right at Nick. And he's like, call me a question mark again. Call me a question mark again. And kept walking. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, there's some accountability because you have to actually, there's a rule. Rich Eisen says this all the time. And I hold it very true to myself. I won't say anything that I won't say to somebody in person, and I've been real harsh on guys like Mason Rudolph and all that. I'd say right to his face, Matt Cannon, and I've said it to Matt Cannon's agent. Like I've been very honest about the things that I've said on here. Twitter accounts, they don't have to do that. So take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research, make sure that you're not falling for the traps when it comes to the slow part of the off seasons, because man, people get you. And this one was a bad one because I think George Pickens, I think he's in for a big year, and I also think that the narrative that he's got off-field issues needs to go away because I think George is a good guy who's just, he's just all wide receivers are just a little bit dramatic. Nothing you can do about it. You blow it up, it always causes more drama. All right, let's dive into some rookies here, but first, we got a word from our boys over at Manscaped. Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Manscaped is here to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full body grooming and hygiene products. Don't be the guy at the beach with Austin Powers chest hair, and if you grew some winter man tits, the least you can do is make sure they're hairless. It's time to get ready for a hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code Steelers20. This is perfect because I'm going to Jamaica, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show here, but I'm about to head to the beach here for a week, and I'm a not a huge chest hair type of guy. Fiance is a big chest hair type of guy. So I could either look like a grizzly bear that's all sandy, or I could look bald and totally fine. And I think Manscaped kind of,
they're helping you out.
Yeah, they're going to save me this time around because, actually, I'll tell you exactly why. Manscaped is dedicated to helping you increase your confidence and level up your full body grooming game with the Performance Package 4.0. The kit comes with the essential Lawnmower 4.0, waterproof cordless body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine. Whether you're trimming your chest or the treasure chest in your pants, this is the best trimmer on the market. Their trimmer features a ceramic blade designed to cut hair on loose skin and to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology. You can even trim an arrow pointing to the promised land if you're bold enough. Inside the Performance Package, you'll find the Manscaped Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, and Crop Reviver ball toner, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, because we all know how painful chafing can be when you're wearing your bathing suit all day. No one likes nose hairs, so their package also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0. You've also got 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag, which is a $40 value add, and the patented high-performance, reduced chafing Manscaped Boxers. If you're wearing sandals, you need to get the Manscaped Shears 2.0 Nail Kit. Having the right tools for the grooming essential, do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job. Get 20% off plus free shipping with our code Steelers20 at manscape.com. That's 20% off with free shipping, and all you have to do is use our code Steelers20 at manscape.com. Trim your chesticles with the besticles. Yeah, gotta love them.
What a way to finish that. What a way to close that out.
I always try to give like a little pause at that last one because it's always a banger. You know, they never leave you hanging. It's always, there's some, and just like Manscaped, just like everybody else, it's the quiet part of the off season. So they're like, all right, we don't need to bring on the bangers during the winter months. Man, these ad reads are my favorite thing to do 3 times a week.
Yeah, I remember the Christmas ones. The Christmas ones were really special. Those were
you can't beat the holiday Manscaped ad reads. You just can't. All right, let's get into some rookies. We want to talk about all the undrafted and obviously drafted rookies who we believe could make the Steelers roster. We've seen them at OTAs for 3 weeks. We've seen them at 3 days of minicamp practice. Here we are heading into training camp. We got a little bit of buzz, a little bit of an idea of who stands out and who really could make this team. There's a long list of drafted and undrafted guys. I want to start with you. Who do you have on your list? Give me maybe 1 or 2 sleepers from this rookie class that you believe can make their way onto the 53.
Yeah, so I'll start with 2 defensive guys. The first one, I really hope I pronounce his name right. James Nyamwaya.
Yeah,
James
sounds right to me.
Defensive end, 6'5", 305 pounds from Merrimack College. It's defensive line is going to be a tough position. I feel like this season for a rookie to crack, especially an undrafted rookie to crack the roster. But I like his size. I don't think he'll stay as a defensive end. That seems, at 305 pounds. I'm not sure how long that'll last, but he's productive at Merrimack College. He, I think this guy can play. I really think he's got some explosive capability to him. I think defensive line, like for how deep the Steelers are, I still think that they could use some depth there. And I think this is a guy that could be a good fit for the back end of the roster as a developmental piece. I'll also go with David Perales, linebacker out of Fresno State. I think this was a guy that people were really excited about when he, I believe he signed. He was not drafted. I'm pretty sure. Yes, but when he signed, people thought, oh, this was a guy that could have been drafted. He fell out of the draft, but the Steelers maybe got a little bit of a steal. Again, really good size, super productive. Another guy who could, and the Steelers could still use some linebackers. Like this is a guy who we could maybe see actually on the field, not even just in a special teams capacity, but actually playing some defense for them.
I like David Perales. I think that he's a guy to definitely watch in training camp. A lot of fans are excited about him as well. I mean, he had like 38 tackles for loss or something in college. The number is ridiculous.
Right.
He's just ultra productive on the field, which I think is huge. He's got an opportunity because the Steelers typically keep 4. That obviously alters, and you don't know what's going to happen with injuries, but I think he's got an upper hand over Quincy Roche. I think he probably has an upper hand over Toby Nagwakwe. I think that he's just like that guy that could sneak his way in here. Once the pads come on, I'm very interested. Once the preseason starts, because I think that's huge. Like that's how these guys make a name for themselves. They go out in the preseason, and there's always one of them. It was Ola Adenini a couple of years ago. It was Tuzar Skipper a couple of years ago. These guys that just go off in the preseason, have crazy games, and then just not only lock themselves in for this season, and Skipper actually didn't even make the roster that year, but they find themselves coming back. Like those are guys that the Steelers keep an eye on. So when they need an outside linebacker, those are the guys that they give a call to. They don't just go out and get any random veteran. I think Perales is a good dude. I've heard good things about him from guys like Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, Marcus Golden, about his production. So I think that he is most certainly a name to watch. I'll give you 2 of them that I have before we go through pretty much everybody here. They're both from the XFL, which I know are not rookies. Technically, they're both veterans, but I believe that the 2 young new guys that have stepped on the field for the Steelers that I think have impressed me the most so far are Luke Barku, who might be the most impressive, and Hakeem Butler. Butler obviously is a fan favorite. He's 27 years old, so he's definitely not a rookie at this point. He's a former 4th-round pick. He spent, I believe, a year or 2 with the Arizona Cardinals and then a year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Comes to Pittsburgh. He led the XFL in touchdowns with 8 this past season. He had like 599 yards or something like that. he comes to Pittsburgh, he's got an opportunity, but that opportunity is going to be tough. Like, he's got to beat out Miles Boykin, he's got to beat out Anthony Miller, he's got to beat out Gunnar Olszewski, Cody White, all these guys, Des Fitzpatrick, who's been making plays during OTAs and minicamp. But I do think that he's got an upper hand just because he's 6'5", he's a big body. He gets fans excited. He's got to prove his special teams worth. I think that'll be huge. He's got to be able to outplay Miles Boykin, who I believe is the favorite right now to make the roster in that final receiver spot. But if he could play special teams and proves that Danny Smith could like this guy, I think he's got an opportunity. Luke Barkoo, I talked to the last day of minicamp, and I just went up to him and I said, yo, give me a rundown of all the plays you've made, because every single day it feels like you're making something. The dude said he's had a couple of picks. He had a pick 6 against Mitch Trubisky. He finished minicamp with 4 pass deflections. And he said, that's just the start. Like, I talked to him and he said, what gets me riled, what gets the juices flowing is when there's fans. He's like, I'm built for the atmosphere. So once training camp starts, he expects that atmosphere to be great. He expects to make even more plays to earn his place. He's got to beat out James Pierre. That's going to be tough as well. But I think that he's young. He's only 24 years old. He doesn't have a ton of NFL experience, really none when it comes to the NFL experience. I think he is a bit raw, which kind of excites the Steelers to the point where maybe they can mold him into something, because we kind of see where James Pierre is and we don't really know what Barkoo could turn into.
Yeah. So when we ran through this, briefly before we started recording, you mentioned Barkoo, and I don't know how much he definitely wasn't a guy that I was thinking about when I was running through this list of rookies of guys who could make the roster. But he has produced in minicamp. Like, he's made some plays. It's going to be a tough position corner is just a tough position for any rookie to make. Like, it's a real deep group for the Steelers already. And I think it also has as much to do with, what they make of James Pierre. Like, that you mentioned him as one of those guys who's going to be on the chopping block if Barkoo does make it. It'll just be really interesting to watch them when the pads come on. And like you said, when Barkoo gets in front of that environment and when they start really, really competing with one another, that it'll be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Luke Barkoo, Hakeem Butler matchup in these backup squads. That would be, I did not pay attention to that in minicamp. Once pads, because Barkoo's just a small dude, but you never know. Feisty, Feisty makes some plays inside, outside. Yeah. I don't know. I think he's certainly a name to watch. All right, so we named 4 of them. Let's kind of go through the rest. We'll start with the drafted guys. Obviously, Broderick Jones is making the roster. 0 questions asked. Joey Porter Jr. probably going to start at this point, so not really worried that he's going to make the roster. Keanu Benton's in the same boat, making the roster, probably going to start. Right. You hit Nick Herbig, who has made plays, but I think that's when things start to get, Darnell Washington making the roster. Not me. You don't draft a 12-foot tight end to say, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we'll keep Connor Hayward.
Practice squad guy.
No chance. Nick Herbig, I think, is where things start to become a bit of a question. I'm not going to say that Nick Herbig isn't going to make the roster. I think that he's also a lock to make the roster. But I think you could question that. Do you feel differently, or do you think that he's also in the boat of a pretty secure spot?
Oh, I feel pretty secure in saying that Nick Herbig is going to not just make the roster, but I think play some significant snaps on defense. I'm pretty high on Nick Herbig. I like him a lot. I think linebacker is a position of need. I feel like the Steelers would love to get some youth injected there. I'm all in.
Yeah, me too. Herbig. I think he looks very impressive. I think he's the most impressive rookie to this point. Yeah, there's just been headline after headline, mostly from me, about Nick Herbig making plays during OTAs and minicamp. I mean, people are going to make a big deal about Darnell Washington. I saw a couple of them that were like, Darnell Washington's turning heads at minicamp. I think he looks impressive. Nick Herbig was so good that Mike Tomlin had to ask the defensive line to get off the field during team. They're like, we're done. We're not going to use defenders anymore and just let the offense rock. That's how good he's looked during OTAs and minicamp. I do think he's going to look real, real good. And then you got the last 2, Corey Trice, which I believe, as much as people enjoy this guy, he's a 7th round pick. And I don't know if he's necessarily a lock. Like, if he sits in the same boat as James Pierre, I believe, and the rest of them were you could look good and they want you to make this team, but they want you to make this team. You don't guarantee yourself anything as a 7th round pick.
Yeah, I love his talent, but based off of some injury concerns, like that
Yeah.
dropped him a little bit. I would really like to see him make the roster. I think he could be really helpful, but yeah, I mean, 7th round pick, nothing's guaranteed at all. You've really got to earn your way onto that roster, and I don't know if Trice is really done that yet. You know, like
Yep.
he's gotta really start to make some plays. So training camp's gonna be big for him. He's gonna I think if he did make the roster, he could really make some plays and he could play some defense. But yeah, you gotta actually because I feel like we've heard nothing about him through minicamp and OTAs. It's been kind of he's been moving quietly, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he had that one day where he like blew up headlines. We talked about him, but after that, it was very quiet. I mean, Hakeem Butler actually had a jump ball on the sidelines, which I thought was a very good opportunity for Corey Trice to be like,
Right,
nobody
right.
could guard me. Hakeem Butler came down with the football, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
it's a
For
little
this
rough
the
on Corey
60 yeah.
Trice.
Yeah, the whole thing was his length, and he's 6'3", and he's huge. But if you're, losing jump ball, and I get it, Hakeem Butler's big, but
Yeah.
he's only 2 inches bigger than you. Like, you gotta be
Yeah,
able
you
to
got to come
beat
down with
those.
those, or yeah, at
Yeah.
least bat the ball. Like you got to make a play, and I think that that's going to be the thing. Is like Corey Trice has to be as consistent as humanly possible once the pads come on to guarantee himself a spot. Like he's got the upper hand. It's for him to lose it. But if Luke Barku, if Madre Harper, like if two guys just if James Pierre just start going off, it's going
Mhm.
to be really tough for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say we're keeping a 7th round pick. Like you're not a lock for anything. Even if the Steelers want him to be that guy, you got to earn it. Which brings us to the second guy here, Spencer Anderson, final pick in the draft. The problem here is that the Steelers have so many offensive linemen, like a ton. And Spencer Anderson, what helps him is the fact that he could play all 5 positions. He has experience in all 5 positions. But the Steelers have 2 backup guards already in Kevin Dotson and Nate Herbig, and they have a backup tackle in Broderick Jones. It's tough for this guy to see himself make the roster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he might be good enough to, as a baseline, as a talent level to make the roster, but there just might not be a spot for him, which is really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
You hope they can keep him around as a practice squad guy because, God forbid their injuries or whatever, he could be a good piece to bring up, and I think a good depth piece. But yeah, there's just not really room for him, which is unfortunate because I think they kind of got a steal when they drafted him.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way that he makes the active roster is if Kevin Dotson gets traded before the start of the season, which I'm not going to take off the table. I think that that's
Right,
still a
but
possibility. Even if it's quiet right now, I think that'll ramp up once injuries start to happen and teams kind of realize the needs that they have and how they need to fill those. I would say it's early for a Kevin Dotson move, but definitely a possibility. I think that's the only way that Spencer Anderson sees himself make the roster, which kind of leaves a hole because your backup center at that point is like Nate Herbig, who has a
right,
little tiny bit of center experience, but not really a ton. So you're banking on some guys. I mean, James Daniels could play center if you need him to, but that's getting
yeah,
messy at that point. Like you're banking on way too much there. But I agree. I don't know if he is a guy that necessarily makes the roster. When you go through the rest of them, you got BT Potter. I think we could both agree is not going to make the roster over Chris
yeah,
Boswell. The only reason that the Steelers bring in rookie kickers every year is because they don't want Chris Boswell to kick almost at all during training camp and the preseason because they've had an injury in the past in the preseason that sparked Chris Boswell's career, but didn't work out very well for them during the season. And they also want him to be comfortable. If just like last year when Chris Boswell went down with a groin injury, they want to have somebody who could just walk into the facility and already feel like they've been a part of this team before, who understands what they're doing, who's familiar with Danny Smith and Presley Harvin and Christian Kuntz, and can kind of just step on the field there. But I mean, unless you feel differently, I do not believe he is making the team.
nope. That all makes sense to me. That I would agree with that.
Yeah. Next is Monty the Mullet Pottenbaum, who, even if he has the best nickname in Pittsburgh, I just don't. I don't see a spot
Yeah,
for him. I think what gets tough here is if you're going to keep 4 tight ends in Pat Fryermuth, Zach Gentry, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward, you can't keep a fullback. Connor Hayward's
yeah,
got to be your fullback, or at least fill that roster spot. and that just kind of bounces Monty Pottenbaum off. I think they could keep him on the practice squad. I think maybe he could be a special teamer, but I just don't think he's got a shot at the roster.
Yeah, and he just doesn't. I don't feel like he doesn't do enough for you on offense. He's not a spectacular special teamer. He doesn't do enough for you on offense. There's just not enough there to justify a roster spot, especially like you said, given all the other tight ends that they have.
Yeah, agreed. You get into some interesting ones here. Tanner Morgan, who is not going to make the roster, obviously, but I think the bigger question here is he going to get Chris Oladokun? Is he gonna get more than 10 snaps during training camp? Is he going to get any snaps during I won't lie to you. The last day of minicamp, somebody said to me, they were like, "Hey, you want to know who I haven't seen at all? Tanner Morgan." And I went, "Wow,
Yeah.
I forgot he's here. Like I totally forgot he was on the team." He did not, I don't believe he took one single snap during minicamp or OTAs, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we're going to act like I am. I don't believe he took one. I don't know if he's going to take any during training camp, but I would say the chances of him making this roster are about 0.
Which I get it. Like, I'm not shocked, I guess, that Tanner Morgan hasn't taken any snaps in OTAs or minicamp, but you know what you have in Mitch and Mason, and honestly, Kenny's going to take the first team reps. He works with them, but like you don't even want to explore like what you have in Tanner Morgan. You don't even want to like test him out, like throw him against some NFL competition and see what's there.
See, I agree with that one, especially like with the third team. I think Kenny takes most of the snaps during training camp, just because like this is his full first offseason as a starter. So you want Kenny should be on the field 90% of the time. But you don't really need a ton of Mitch Trubisky. You need almost no Mason Rudolph out there. Maybe you toss Tanner Morgan out there for a 2-minute drill here and there and see how he could do. You know what I mean? Get him some reps during team drills when you would put Mason in there. Like, I think that makes all the sense. Like, what is Mason going to do? What you have in Mason. Everybody on this field knows what you have in Mason. They've worked with them for 4 years now, 5 years now. It's not like they're like, oh, I got to get comfortable with Mason Rudolph. No, they've been comfortable with Mason Rudolph. I agree.
Right.
I think you should test out Tanner Morgan here or there. Will they? I would say probably not. I don't think Mason Rudolph gets many snaps in training camp. I think it's a very Kenny Mitch heavy Latrobe. St. Vincent College this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next one is another exciting name, Jordan Byrd, wide receiver / kick return specialist. He's like 5'7", little dude, working with Calvin Austin, who kind of took him under his wing as another little guy. He made a couple of good plays early, kind of fell off after that. You feeling any type of way about Jordan Byrd?
Well, I think this is interesting. I think that he's an interesting name, along with Alfonso Graham, who we'll maybe talk a little bit more about later, but and Darius Higgins, all these kind of offensive specialists that you think might be able to help him on special teams, like in the return game or something like that. That's really where guys are gonna separate themselves, because look, like receivers real full, running backs real full, like these guys aren't going to make it based off of their offensive abilities, quite honestly.